Good evening and welcome to the Board of Selectmen's meeting on October 6th. There are a number of familiar faces in the audience tonight, so I better have my A game on. The first item on our agenda is the Selectmen's Highway and Police Department capital budget requests. And I believe we looked at these last meeting, and there's probably some updates we're going to discuss this meeting.
Essentially, Madam Chair, the numbers and the timing is as I presented at the last meeting. What's happened in the meantime is I met with the CMAC group, Carroll Management Advisory Committee, and went over their items for fiscal 18, as well as, of course, the big ticket items in fiscal 19, and they endorsed the plan as proposed.
So the items that impacted them is the expansion and paving of the parking lot, correct? And the air conditioning for the Blue Room. As you know, I'm the liaison to the capital budgets for this committee, and we thought it would be appropriate when we review the budget, the selectmen's budget, specifically for items that relate to the Carroll Community Center, and given that in the outgoing years there's some significant capital that's required, I thought it might be beneficial to ask representatives from CMAC to attend that meeting, because that was certainly missing last year. They really do understand the usage of the building and the needs that are there, and I think they can really help give especially the new members of capital budget some of the insight that those of us who've been around for a while have.
As well as the reasons for delaying or...
Right,
yes,
right. So are you looking for us to approve these budgets as presented? All right, so then should I do a budget at a time, or is it just the selectmen's budget?
It's all three.
Okay.
They're all yours.
All right, there they go. So first, I would like to approve the Board of Selectmen's budget for fiscal year 2018. The total amount is for $249,200, and the items are an energy, a lighting update. And just as a note, this was done in conjunction with the green community audits, and the number of 86,200 represents the net number. So it's the net number after rebates from the that will be provided from the public utility companies. Then there is exterior painting of the protective agency building for $18,000, the fire station, the overhead door openers for $35,000, the $20,000 for the air conditioning in the Blue Room, $50,000 to replace the wheelchair lift in this building. It's just outside there, and that's a mandatory requirement. $25,000 for the expansion and paving of the parking lot at the Carroll Community Center. And what we've done is this price represents leveraging that we've done through the highway department. So we're using their pricing, which really reduces the cost. And then the Whiting Road painting of the exterior of the building.
Excellent.
Do I have a
second your motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
And just for informational purposes, as we always do, we go out 5 years. For 2019, it's a big year. There's $2.5 million as a placeholder, and that includes the new boilers at the Carroll Community Center, the updating of heating and piping controls, as well as the need to bring the building up to handicap accessibility thresholds. And then for 2020, it's back down to where we've seen it, $258,400, $15,000 for 2021, and in 2022 we have a placeholder for $940,000. That's to replace the roof here. The next budget that we're approving, which is kind of a laugh, is the highway department, and they're requesting $0. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
And again, last year, there was a placeholder for one of the dump trucks, and Mr. Hughes, after looking, after examining the truck, determined that there really was no need to replace it, and pushed it out as a placeholder in 2019. Now, again, the highway department does take really good care of all of their trucks. And last but not least, it's the police department budget, which we reviewed in detail last meeting. They are requesting $106,300 for fiscal year 2018. Again, they are requesting 2 patrol vehicles. They're on a 2-1-2-1 program, which seems to have been working for us. They are also looking to update the department servers for $14,000, and they need to replace some of the defibrillators for $19,300. So do I have a motion to approve $106,300 for the police department budget?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and then going out, it's the 3131 vehicles. That's mostly what we have going out 5 years, with the exception of a placeholder in 2022 for the total radio replacement, and I'm sure we'll find out more about that as it gets closer. So thank you to everybody for preparing this, for putting together the memos, and I know Capital Budgets is looking forward to reviewing the stuff. Next on our item is the holiday schedule, which of course I've lost. Does somebody want to talk to that?
So this is the 2017 holiday schedule for dates that the townhouse will be closed for major holidays. It's 11 altogether, and where the holiday falls on a Saturday or Sunday, we've moved the closure date to the Friday or the Monday accordingly. And also at the bottom, you will see the major Jewish holidays for 2017 are listed, and will be posted on the website to make every effort not to schedule meetings on those dates as well.
We do appreciate
Ask
that.
that the selectmen approve the
Okay.
schedule.
The other thing you have to remind certain selectmen of is trying not to schedule meetings on election days. Some of us do that.
That as well, yes, the town clerk asked, please. Yeah, for
Right.
the Secretary of State.
I move that we accept this holiday schedule as listed.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda, which is why I see so many familiar faces, I'm sure, is for us to review some of the proposed solid waste regulations. And just as some background information, I think it was in the spring, Mr. Poulson and Ms. Lisbon, you came before the committee, and we charged you with updating the solid waste regulations. And as we began to go through that process, as what usually happens is it becomes a bigger task than we may have envisioned. And Mr. Poulson, you put together some regulations which you shared with us and the Board of Health. And I think we got those about 30 days ago. When I looked through the regulations as you presented them, we made some suggestions, and I know you guys will talk to this a little bit more about pay-as-you-throw not really being part of this, but pulling that out as a separate line item. And then you also tried to make it easier for those of us that weren't embedded in this process to understand it by breaking it up into segments, which I really appreciate. But even then, it was an overwhelming task for somebody like me who hadn't done as much research as both all of you on Recycling Committee and the Board of Health, and I had asked legal counsel to take your simplified regulations and do an analysis for me which said, what was required by Mass General Law, what is policy, what is, best practice, and that way it would make it easy for me to better review and have a better understanding of what we were trying to do. I really apologize, but I only got this analysis this morning, and so I have not had time to look to see what legal counsel is suggesting. I know all of you also received it, so unfortunately, and it's not kicking the can down the road, but unfortunately, I'm not in a position this evening to make any decisions, but I do know that in spite of that, I believe your committees do have some items that you'd like to share with us in connection with how maybe to move this forward more efficiently.
And perhaps we could start to just clarify what it is that the council has given you advice on, because there's two remaining sets of regulations. One was basically to update the transfer station regulations for the last 30 years. And it included two provisions. One was to eliminate commercial hauler use of the transfer station, and per Mass law to make it mandatory that residents recycle, that they separate recyclables from, that was the updated regs. And that was to go for selectmen and Board of Health approval. And then the other set was for introduce commercial hauler regulations and dumpster regulations, and that was just directed to the Board of Health.
And we as council to opine on all of that. And this evening,
okay.
I am not, and not so much to opine, but to provide us with a framework by which to better analyze and for all of us to figure out what's best for the town of Dover. And again, unfortunately, this evening, we are not in a position, having not read it, and I believe Mr. Ramsey shared the analysis with all of you here.
Do you have a copy, Chris? I know.
The council's analysis?
Council's analysis.
Do you have a copy there?
I can give a copy.
No, I think Mona's...
But I do.
Well,
Oh, okay.
So,
I have a
so
copy as well.
Perhaps this is a good time to sort of back up a step and present a recommendation or a clarification
Okay.
to the board on how we might proceed. As I think you all know, Chris and Jerry spent a tremendous amount of time in summer, and were amazingly zealous in their development. of
Very
regulation.
zealous.
And kind of tell whether that zealousness is what ends up. But what's also happened is that when you look at that draft, you realize that there are basically 5 buckets of information and decision-making issues. And I would like to suggest that we all agree on what those 5 buckets are and see if we could maybe take some of the smaller buckets and actually make some decisions over the next month or two as the bigger issues get worked through the system. Because otherwise we're throwing out the baby with the bathwater and it's just going to take forever. And they are really independent. So for instance, remembering that this originated at the recycling committee, the recycling committee has no authority, no interest, no town code description to be involved in dumpsters. So I'd like to suggest that the issue of dumpsters is a situation that's between the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Health, and get separated out and handled however you guys would like to, but not by the recycling committee.
Okay?
Commercial haulers are in the same situation, except for one thing which I'll talk about in a minute. But the whole issue of regulating commercial haulers is also something that isn't a recycling committee issue. It's a Board of Selectmen and Board of Health issue, depending on how the town council defines. So to me, that's a second bucket. The third bucket is pay-as-you-throw. It ends up actually being a very small part of all the regulations because it's rather a simple thing. But again, it's a separate issue. My suggestion would be that it be a warrant article on the town meeting, sponsored by either the recycling committee or Board of Health, depending on how town council use authority to move this process forward. So that's the third bucket. The,
You got two more.
yep, the fourth bucket is really what we had thought we were starting with, which was taking a one-page 1988 typewritten,
I'm updating it.
regulations on the transfer station and update them to reflect how our transfer station operates. And I think that's something that's doable, walking back a bit from the complexity of what we have in front of us. And the fifth bucket is actually the one that I think we can get, hopefully, resolved the quickest. And that has to do with commercial haulers, but not regulating them. It's the issue of allowing commercial haulers to tip at the transfer station. So right now, we have Dover Trucking picking up trash and recyclables from Dover residents and using the transfer station to dispose of the trash. And may I finish?
Oh, I thought you were.
And as Craig, I believe, mentioned to you at a meeting in the spring, there's some indication that some of that trash is being contaminated by other towns' trash that Dover Trucking picks up. I mean, programs in Medfield and Plainville and about 7 or 8 other towns. In addition, there are some new haulers that are beginning to come into town. So it seemed like between Craig's recognition of an issue about the contamination of the trash and the fact that there was going to be some competition, it raised the issue about why are haulers allowed to, at no charge, use Dover's transfer station in the first place. It's an aberration when you look at other towns and cities in Massachusetts. So what the recycling committee is suggesting, with Craig's support, is that effective January 1st, we ban commercial haulers from using the transfer station. It has nothing to do with all the commercial hauler regs that the Board of Health does and everything else. It's just an independent issue. We are an outlier when it comes to this policy. It's been going on for decades. There's nothing that says you have approval to do it. It's just been done. And if Craig was here tonight, he would be recommending that we do that. We'd like to make it effective January 1st because the state requires towns to submit recycling data and so forth on a calendar year basis. So we could start calendar year 2017 clean without all that trash in there. So we'd like to propose that we take that one bucket, discuss what do we need to do, who needs to do it, and the time frame to do it to make it effective January 1st, and at least try to address that one issue.
Okay. Mr. Clark.
I spent at this point 2 full days with DEP on this overall matter.
On what overall matter?
The 5 discussion topics.
Okay, so
And I
you're
agree
not,
completely with the 5 discussion
you're not
topics.
specifically referring to the commercial haulers?
Each and every one of the 5
Okay.
topics.
Okay,
Okay. So if we go over the last one first, and also the question of recycling, I think there's been some confusion. The transfer station ought to be viewed as if it were a third-party operated entity. It happens to be operated by the highway department, but under the law, it's essentially a third-party operation.
okay,
And
so,
it has the right to set its own rules of operation.
so I would, this evening, I thought I made it clear, so I'm just going to reiterate my comments. I am not looking to discuss how to improve things or these issues. I am really glad to hear that we all agree that there are 5 areas that we need to look at, and I would like to try and put together a framework within we can begin one by one to go through these items. And Mr. Clark, I think you and I are going to spend a lot of quality time together.
What I'm saying to
So-
you, if I may, is in support of Ms. Elizabeth, the highway department, as the operator of the solid waste transfer station, can of its own regard set its own regulations.
So are you saying that the transfer agent, that the transfer station on its own, Mr. Hughes as the head of highway, and by default, the regulator or operator of the transfer station, can make the decision himself without the Board of Selectmen to eliminate
That is
commercial
correct.
hauls? So that's the point you're making.
The law is clear that so long
Okay.
as it is not in conflict with existing Mass General law or existing Commonwealth Mass regulations, the third-party operator is operating a business. It happens to be a town-operated
Right,
business.
so you know what, having had to work today and not having been able to read what council put together, and I'm hoping that council addressed this because I specifically asked that they do. So rather than have this conversation this evening, allow me
Okay.
just some time to make sure that I review what council has done, and then we can certainly, whether this is something to discuss at our next meeting or at a Board of Health meeting, when I am more comfortable with my knowledge, which I am not comfortable with this evening, I will gladly entertain a conversation.
And being very conscious of the selectmen's agenda and keeping to it, I really had two other things I wanted to, in my opportunity.
So now there's 7.
No, actually, I was going to summarize that the 5 issues that Ms. Lisbon and Mr. Clark raised, 4 of them are addressed in those 2 regulation proposals, okay?
Okay.
The 5th one, pay as you throw, the can that we're kicking down the road.
But we're not,
Ms.
because I think
Lisbon-
we've,
Ms. Lisbon, so I just wanted to follow
Okay.
up, because there's an ask. Ms. Lisbon mentioned that we would like to propose that that be on the town warrant
okay,
and go through the warrant process. And we request that we convene, and in fact, Jim, from the warrant committee, James Stewart, is willing and able and has offered to convene with us a session to go through the numbers associated with page.
So let me clarify that, and Kate Kane, who's chair of the warrant committee,
Right.
Okay,
is here, so
Okay.
let me address that. So, anyway, so that was one of the other agenda items for tonight, very
Yeah.
quickly. So are we done with the 5 buckets?
yeah, well, now we're on 6 and 7.
No, number
No,
5.
he's okay.
We're on the
So-
same front, yeah.
Assuming that.
Just
page
messing
control
with you.
becomes assuming page control becomes a warrant article,
Right,
then there are folks on the warrant committee that are already interested in understanding better the numbers that were presented to you back in the spring.
Right.
Kathy Mercer there. So
Right.
I've spoken with Kate, I spoke with Kathy Mercer this morning, and we have 3 dates, but one of them is right the day after the election of the new selectmen, so it probably didn't work. So I have 2 dates that I'd like to propose for a
Okay.
joint meeting between the selectmen, the recycling committee, and the warrant committee. And Kathy will come,
and
go
present
through the
them.
numbers, present, and ask all the questions. And the thought was to get that done before the warrant committee gets inundated with all the budgets in January.
Okay, I think that's a good plan. I know, I'm not sure when exactly this concern was raised, but I do know at some point there was, some members of the warrant committee had asked for additional support of the numbers. And I think it's a great use of everybody's time for us all to be in the same room, ask the questions together so that we all have the same understanding.
And we'll
Well,
also give us time.
particularly since we've since gotten the opinion from the county town council. So that probably will be helpful moving forward.
Right.
So the 2 dates are November 30th or December 7th. Those are already dates that are scheduled by the warrant committee.
Yes, those are.
So those are Wednesday nights?
Those are Wednesday.
And that's, so, if the 2 of you could either.
So should we be nice, Candace? Should we pick one? Both of those work for me.
They're both fine.
All right, let's go with 11:30.
Okay, so we'll do 11:30. I'll send out an email to everybody.
Okay,
And I think that'll be very helpful. Plus, if there are additional questions, it'll give Kathy time
Okay.
to get that without the hassle of
Okay.
February, March coming up.
right. And I envision pay-as-you-throw being a huge, there are going to be both sides in town with respect to this program. So what I would like to do is also make sure that any any information that we have, especially from external consultants, do a similar thing to what we did with 46 Springdale, but put the information out there so that it's available to townspeople that are interested in the program. Because I've had people approach me telling me that this has been approved already, and where should they pick up the bags? But, you know, I wasn't aware that the program had been,
Well, so you can now know early on October 6th that you will have a quorum at town meeting.
correct.
Okay, and the last two items, I believe you have further on your agenda, so not under this update, but there's a committee member appointment that we're hoping that the selectmen would, the general thing on your agenda for me
Right.
was an update on the recycling committee, so there's an appointment we'd like to see this evening, I think it's on your agenda.
It is, it's later on my agenda, but why don't you go ahead and make it right now?
Okay, well, so there's Lindsay Nye, who's a resident of Dover, and has been screened by the recycling committee and has full unanimous support for a 3-year appointment, is a request of the selectmen to support.
Okay, so then, I would like to make a motion to appoint Lindsay Nye, to a 3-year term on the recycling committee.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And thank you, Lindsay.
And the last item was.
And you're next, Mr. Clark.
Was an update on the grants that the town administrator is supposed to sign, and I believe that's also on your agenda, if I'm not mistaken. That's
That-
750.
Yeah, I'm sorry, that was taken off of the tentative agenda
Oh,
because we just need a gift and grant acceptance and expenditure form prepared, and it will be on the next selectmen's agenda. It's for 5,000,
It's 2550, I think.
Oh.
$2,250.
2250, that's correct. So Craig Hughes is getting that for us. The selectmen have to sign off on the acceptance and
It's just-
expenditure, and then Mr. Ramsey can sign it as soon as that vote goes
Does that
through.
have to go through like this, a venue like this? It's
It would be at the next,
approved in advance, and then it's a form that needs to be to acknowledge, right, the terms for receipt of the money.
The contract.
Work that out offline?
It's not, it's a process, and
Yeah.
if you recall, the process was set in place, I can't remember, you may remember,
Well,
Mr.
I have to see parts.
Right, so we really have to make sure,
Carol's legacies.
right, it's a little bit cumbersome, but it is a process that we need to
Yeah.
follow.
So it'll be on the next agenda.
it will be on the next
Well, oh, that's
agenda.
right, which is just a couple of weeks.
That's
Right.
right, that's
Yeah,
correct.
And that's fine.
That's correct.
And then just as a quick update from us to you, those other 2 grants that you had approved for the new shed and the new roof,
Right,
those capital expenditures will appear in the capital outlay portion of the transfer station's operating budget
okay,
because of the $10,000
Ceiling.
ceiling out for the, or bottom for the
Right,
capital
right.
budget.
So-
So you'll see that there, and James Stewart was at our meeting last week, and he knows that the operating budget for that will be quite a bit larger because those 2 articles, items at the gross level.
right.
Because they'll be netted out after we get the reimbursement.
Which was one of the things I would suggest that, you know, I know they usually make notations on the budget, because we won't remember, but it would be good to put like a little note. And C of A does it with some of their grants, they just remind everybody that their grant funds that are gonna offset that cost. And Mr. Clark, you've been waiting patiently, okay?
Very quickly, the one item that I want you to be aware of in terms of calendar is that the next Board of Health meeting on October 17th, we are proposing to review, possibly vote on, the regulation regarding dumpsters as authorized under Mass General Laws 111.
Right, well, again,
And I have one other question for Greer, and that was, I submitted a gifts and grant form for the emergency funds, the federal emergency grant. Has it made its way to you?
It has not. To whom did you submit that?
Well, I handed it to our administrative assistant to go forward. It is a federal grant administered through an entity in Cambridge, and it would be up to $5,000 expenditure that we would make on an ongoing basis towards a plan for emergency management, emergency medical matters. It's been handled in the past several years ago, and it's a reoccurring grant.
I believe that Mr. Hughes may have had a conversation.
Mr. Who?
Mr. Hughes regarding this for
This is-
storage
this is-
purposes? Is that the medical supplies for storage down at the trailer at the highway garage? Is that?
No.
No? Oh, okay.
Sounds
I will-
different.
It is, okay. I will speak with your
This
administrative
is a
assistant.
pay-as-you-go, pay-as-you-expend, reimburse as you expend type grant,
Okay.
up to a cap of $5,000.
I will get that information from her.
I'll check with Karen,
You would-
make sure it gets forwarded.
Thank you.
Okay.
Could I just clarify again, you said on the 17th of October you intended to vote,
No,
perhaps
I-
vote
Perhaps vote,
on,
but the two of the three members of the board have already gone through what we're talking about. The third one has given his approval in concept to looking at implementing the regulations fairly much as you see them now in the draft form, albeit in making it much more concise, less verbose, by simply citing all of the relevant acts and regulations and incorporating them by reference and not including all the words in the document itself.
So I would hope that, since legal counsel has gone through those and has
Yes.
comments, that we
Yes.
would, right, incorporate.
And she also indicated in her opinion that it is within the purview of the Board of Health under, again, relevant acts and regulations, that it has the right to, in fact, vote and implement such regulations.
required in order to protect public health and avoid the communication of illness. Right.
That's the general scope,
Correct.
yes.
Well, I would just hope, again, having not been able to study the opinion, that the Board of Health, if there were issues that have been raised by council, that you would hold off on your vote until we've had an opportunity to review.
I think you'll find that council is in agreement with our opinion as to the authorities in this regard. And actually, I had a conversation with the town administrator, and I don't think there's any
Okay,
conflict whatsoever
I
on
just,
any of these
all
matters.
right, well, I'm not suggesting that there is, I just, again.
The chair is handicapped by not having read
Right.
I fully understand.
what I dropped into her hands sometime midday today. So I apologize for that, Madam Chair.
Right.
By the way, I just as a reference, I didn't realize that she did say that.
Ah, okay.
All right, good. Well, thank you, everybody, and again, my apologies for not being able to be better prepared this evening on this matter.
Thank you, and I assume I'll hear from somebody then on how to proceed on the commercial holiday.
Right. So, my suggestion is we just put together a timeline and a framework and figure it out, so, all right. Okay, next on our agenda is the update on the Blue Wave Solar Array at Hale Reservation. And, we were really pleased to report at our last meeting that we did get the DEP permits and that Blue Wave was able to submit their, thank you to the planning board, Ms. Lisbon, for your help, to meet this really tight deadline, and what's open now is there's some key agreements that we're working on as a town, and those are the pilot program, which is it's basically amortizes the taxes. So it's something that we're looking into. There's the license agreement with Blue Wave, and then we, what am I missing? There's one more item. The net metering agreement. So having Blue Wave provided us with their financial models to analyze the net metering agreement, the business terms of it, as well as the pilot program, which was what their proposal was. Personal property taxes typically are paid, they're front-end loaded, but rather than doing that to make this more, financially appealing to the town and as well as to Blue Wave, we would amortize the tax payments over the life of the program. Not having much experience with these types of models, we did talk a little bit to the Board of Assessors as well through legal counsel, and we have decided to retain a consultant to help us analyze the terms, because none of us are experts with these solar arrays, and it's hard to know whether the business terms are good or not. Certainly the concepts make sense, and that's all that I can really get comfortable with. So we are at the point with legal counsel to send those contracts to the consultant, who will then be able to provide us with feedback as to whether or not the terms of the agreements are good for the town or not. And when we do get a report back from the consultant, we will then share it with the Warrant Committee. Again, I think I need to emphasize that the net metering program and the pilot program, we can take or leave what the offer is. It doesn't prevent Blue Wave from putting the solar array in place. The licensing agreement is very important for us to agree to the terms of who is going to take care of what with respect to monitoring and the continued maintenance of the landfill. And there aren't any, we've been working very well with Blue Wave and their council and our council, and we're pretty close to coming to terms with those items. So I don't foresee any hiccups there. The one thing is I can't make a recommendation right now, or we can't make a recommendation on whether or not to enter into the net metering or the pilot program without really having an expert look at it.
And it's really only a license agreement that needs to be approved prior to them starting construction.
Exactly, and that's the one we don't have.
Construction needs to get started with 50% done by the end of the year or so,
Right.
for them to get the grants.
Right. And, I really appreciate all committees coming together. I appreciate Blue Wave, running around, making sure that we got what we needed, attending all the town meetings. They've been, so far, a really good business partner.
And we found they were a wonderful partner from the planning board perspective. Very responsible, very accommodating.
Right. So, I think Hale really found a good partner. Next on the agenda are appointments, and we made one, and I believe, thanks.
Thank you.
Good night,
And
Carol.
I-
Excuse me, Madam Chairman.
Did I
You
miss something?
skipped the election warrant?
Oh, right. I always do this. I should wear my glasses. Oh, is somebody going to speak to that, or do we just approve it?
Just approve it. This is required for the
Okay.
state election to take place.
So before me is the warrant for state election that I almost skipped over. And I would like to make a motion to approve the warrant for state election, which will be held on the 8th day of November, 2016. And as a reminder, we voted to open our polls earlier than usual, so the polls will be open from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. Is there anything more I need to say? All right, so do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. I'm sure a lot of work went into this.
The town clerk is busy getting this ready in time for your meeting.
Right, she's been a very busy beaver.
She's been very busy.
These are certain things that we just take for granted.
That's right.
Thank you to the town clerk and everybody else that helped. Do I need to put the dates in, or?
We can fill that in for you
Okay,
afterwards.
all right.
Yes.
All right, and now to appointments.
I have several.
Okay, wonderful.
I had the privilege of attending the Council on Aging Board meeting on Tuesday and met there. One new member, I'd like to nominate, appoint Robert Cox, C-O-C-K-S, to the board, and the second person, regular board member to be nominated, to be appointed, is Reverend Peter DeSanto. He didn't happen to be there on Tuesday, but he is the other new board member. And the third for the COA is an associate member, Jerry Wise, Gerrywise.
Thank you.
So thank you very much to all three of them. A very lively and passionate board, so it's very nice.
So I think you have to make a motion.
I move that we appoint Robert Cox, Reverend Peter DeSanto, and Jerry Wise to 3 positions on the COA board.
Second that. And I, all in favor?
Aye.
And I echo your remarks. Thank you to everybody for, it really takes a village to make sure that we're taking into account different opinions.
Absolutely, and I also would like to say thanks to Camille Johnston, who is re-upping for another 3 years. So there is a 4th appointment then for the COA board, Camille Johnston. Thank you very much.
So we need to make a motion also to
I
reappoint.
move that we reappoint Camille Johnston to her position on the board for an additional 3 years.
I'll second
COA
that.
board.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, thank you.
And at the very interesting open space meeting on Tuesday evening, a new member stepped forward, and I would like to make a motion to appoint Greg Cahoon, K-A-H-O-U-N, as a new member for 3 years on the Open Space Committee. Thank you, Greg.
I'd like to second that. All in favor?
Aye. Thank you.
So what made it so interesting?
The hydrology.
Oh, okay.
It was a wonderful presentation by John Thompson. It was a wonderful presentation on hydrology issues, water issues in this general New England area. He is a specialist. He actually is the superintendent now, head of all of Medfield State Hospital lands for Medfield, and very
Quite a
knowledgeable. Oh my
responsibility.
goodness. And he is a wonderful presenter and a tremendous PowerPoint where he was able to explain not only the land formation, because now in addition to being a specialist in hydrology, he's a specialist in glacier formation and the fact that New England was formed and carved by the glaciers, and had gone around through Dover and taken photographs of particular breaks in the rocks that you could see that would indicate that that was from the pressure of the glacier and that they rise up as the glacier has melted and now the rocks continue to rise. So fascinating. Fascinating. I also would love to share, if I may,
You
while we're
may.
on the subject of John Thompson, something, and I think, Kate, you agree with me, one of the most amazing comments he made was with regards to the drought. And he said that the hit that this area has taken from the drought this past summer will take us 3 heavy snow years comparable to the mega snow of 2 years ago. 3 years to regain the lost water table from this drought this summer. And something that I had never realized is that the water table only rises between the months of October and April, because after April, the uptake and the use of the water is going into the leaves, taken up by the trees, and also from all of the use and through the summer, the warmer weather. So it was an amazing presentation.
I wanted to attend, but I couldn't, so. And I mean, we're very fortunate. I know Justine Kent Irritam, I know that she was able to get, we were very fortunate that she was able to get him here to speak to the town.
Right, she's executive director of the Charles River Watershed, and he is on their board. So they work closely together.
So thank you, Justine. I butchered your name, but thank you. All right, and I guess we're on other business. So this evening, what would an evening be without special licenses? So this evening, oh, we only have two. This is great.
It's retroactive.
Right, one is retroactive, so we have one. So there was an event on October the 6th, that's today. So it's happening right now, we can go after, at Elm Bank. And then on October 22nd, there is a wedding at the Dover Church. And both of these have been signed off by the police chief. So I make a motion to approve the 2 one-day special liquor licenses as described earlier.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Thank you.
I guess the wedding season's over.
That's it.
So you can take time now with your penmanship, if you please. And the next item on the agenda is a prior notice. I know you guys are really interested in these. And it is for $14,000, and it pertains to the Carroll Community Center. And it's for funds to be used to repair the second boiler at the Carroll Community Center. Mr. Ramsey, do you want to add some additional light?
Boiler sprung a leak in the spring. We didn't have the money.
Sprung a leak in the spring?
Right, spring. So we're getting around to repairing it now in preparation for the heating season.
Do you guys have any questions?
It was sprung in the spring, why wasn't it,
We didn't have any money.
well, yeah, I know, but we don't have the money now either. I'm just kind of curious why it wasn't addressed in the prior fiscal year.
I don't recall exactly when it occurred, John.
So do we have to vote on this, or
Yes.
is it just, all right, so I make a motion that we approve $14,000 for building maintenance for the repair of boiler number 2. And it's the building maintenance Carroll account, and right now there is a balance of $27,393 in it.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I wonder if you want to take a moment under other business just to talk a little bit about 46 Springdale?
Oh,
You've graciously taken over responsibilities
Thank you.
for me.
I do look forward to it. You shared last meeting, and it is such a very fine idea that each of the boards and commissions that have had opinions and weighed in on 46 Springdale, each one is going to send one liaison forward into a working group. And I will head that up, and what we will do is, in their working with their heads of their boards, they'll check their agendas, and anytime 46 Springdale is going to be discussed at Planning Board, at Conservation Commission, at the Board of Health, at any of them where it would pertain, then indeed we'll be sure that an email goes out to the liaison so that all of us have an opportunity to go and hear that discussion as it pertains to that particular board. The purpose of this group is not to reopen the larger question. The purpose of the group is really to be sure that we all can agree on the fine tuning that we as a board committed to make on the warrant article after the last town meeting. Just enough question about how we looked at it, why we made the decision, could we present perhaps a better alternative that would work better for the town, and we want total buy-in from the various boards and commissions. So it's in that spirit that we'll be coordinating that.
Right, and I think what's very important is that questions get answered, everybody's questions
Sure.
get answered.
Absolutely.
During these meetings, so that when it does come to town meeting, there are no unanswered questions. And just a little bit of clarification, when the email did go out, it wasn't suggesting that only the planning board would be having meetings. It was, the suggestion was that the planning board right now is looking at the carve-out. And so they will continue to look at that and then make a recommendation to us for the carve-out of the house lot.
Thank you for bringing that up. I meant to say that. You're absolutely right. Everyone will have input.
Right. Next, we can review the minutes from our September 7th meeting. That was a beauty of a meeting, quite a long meeting.
Yes, it was.
And we have 8 pages of minutes to remind us. And again, I would like to thank you for the excellent minutes
Right.
that you prepare. And I do not have any changes to the minutes.
Nor do I.
All right, so
Wonderful.
then I will make a motion to approve the September 7th minutes of our meeting as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much again. I had the opportunity of having to take minutes at the capital budget meeting, our last meeting, and I appreciate you even more. My minutes weren't nearly as good as yours. I was lucky I got the meeting dates right. So, thank you. Any citizens' comments? All right. Well, fall is here. It's cooler. I don't have anything. So then I will make a motion to adjourn our meeting at 7:25.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.